Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining in. Welcome to Elite CISO's weekly webinar that we conduct every Thursday, 11 o'clock India time. So thanks a lot for taking out time and joining us today. So today's partner is NetWitness, and what we are going to talk about is around how do you improve your SOC, right? If you look at the title says building blocks for a risk-focused security operations center. So security operations center or SOC is a very important piece in your cyber defense strategy. It can help you reduce the dwell time. If your SOC is effective, you can quickly find out what kind of intrusion is happening in your environment, right? So to talk more about it, we have Mr. Chongming joining us from Singapore. Chongming is Head of Systems Engineering at NetWitness. And during this session, we will cover what kind of challenges CIOs and CISOs facing while managing a SOC. And then how do you future-proof your SOC, right? We have seen different kind of attacks coming in. So Mr. Chongming will talk about how you can future-proof your SOC. And then why do you need to build a risk-focused SOC, right? We focus too much on technology, that okay, all the events are coming or not, how the correlation is happening. But let's hear what does it mean to have a risk-focused SOC. That's what the topic and the title for today is. A quick agenda slide. As you know, every time what we do is we have a quick 5-minute introduction and then we will have a quiz. And the quiz is fastest finger first, okay? There will be 2 questions and you have to answer quickly. And the first right answer, whoever answers that will get Amazon voucher worth 1,000 rupees. Okay, so that's the initial quick 5-minute welcome. And then we will have NetWitness session for about 40-45 minutes. And at the end, we will have Q&A. So you don't have to really wait till the end for the question answer. I mean, at the end, there will be a live Q&A. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. But during the session, if you have any question, you can put it in a Q&A tab. So if you look at your Zoom interface, you will see that there's a Q&A tab. So during the session, if you have any question, you can put it over there. And I see there are more people joining from RSA side. So we have Navneet and we have Rohit. So those people will answer your questions during the session. And at the end, Chongming will have, we can take live questions with him. And then I will share the secret to download your participation certificate. We will have Wheel of Fortune. And the giveaway for today is Amazon Alexa. The registrations will open for next session. So on Saturday and next Thursday, again, we have different sessions coming up. So we will open registration for those. That's about the agenda, and slides will be available. We are recording this session and this will go on our YouTube channel and website as well. Now, as you know, what next? As we always do, stand and attend challenge, okay? Those who are joining us for the very first time, those who do not know about this challenge is to make you more active and more attentive during the session. Because if you are going to sit for the entire day, or if you're going to sit most of the time during your work day, you will get foggy brain, you can have different problems, right? We do not want any of that. What we want is we want you to stay focused on the session. And how you can stay focused on the session? You can stand while attending the session. If you stand, you will have less pain in your body. You will think sharp and smart. See, I'm also standing, so I'm throwing this challenge to you all. Not only the participants, I throw this challenge to the panelists as well. Don't sit for 1 hour, right? I'm not sure how Chongming is set up in terms of presentation, but yes, this challenge is for everyone, okay? As I ask that, go to the chat and type yes if you're accepting this challenge. And Mr. Rajendra Bhalerao is joining for the first time. So yeah, it's a overview and refresher for you. Accept this challenge and you will like it. You will enjoy. Okay, great. So I see a lot of people accepting the challenge. Thank you very much, guys. It is good that you're accepting it. Okay. Now the benefit of standing, because you are thinking sharp. So you will be able to do better in the quiz. The quiz is coming up now. It is fastest finger first. Even if you don't know the answer and you have to Google it fast and put the answer in the chat. When you put it in the chat, it should go to panelists and all attendees so that everybody knows that, okay, you are answering. Okay, guys, 144 people I see right now. And here comes the first question. Okay, the question is, Give any documented CVE number of the iOS vulnerabilities that Pegasus exploits. Okay, Pegasus is going rampant. Everybody is kind of talking about it. Do you know the CVE number of the vulnerability? I see one. I see the chat blinking. Okay, I think we have the right answer. Vikram S has given the right answer. Whether you knew it or you Googled it, it's very good. Okay, great. We have got the right answer. Wonderful. So I think there are 3 documented CVE in iOS that Pegasus exploits. You know, without you doing anything, it can be exploited. So that's how it is. That's the answer for the first one, CVE 2016 4655, 56, and 57. Those are documented CVEs. Okay, guys, next question coming up now. Okay, related to SOC, related to how do you collect the data and all. Okay, the question is, name the native Windows operating system service that can be used to collect Windows event viewer logs at a central repository, right? You have thousands of Windows machines. You want to collect their event viewer logs at a central location. What is the name of that service? I see chat going crazy and blinking like anything. I'm asking about the service, not WMI, not WMI. It's a service, not syslog, not WinCollect. Okay, I'm putting the answer now. If you do not know, I've not seen the right answer, but we will go through the chat and find it out. It is called Windows Event Forwarding Service. What you can do with Windows Event Forwarding is you can collect the logs from all your Windows endpoint and put it to a central server using this service, right? You can have a Windows event collector, right? It can collect all your events at one position or one server. And the question to ask to your SOC provider, if they are counting the number of devices, you know, licenses based on number of devices, will it be considered one device or multiple device? Because server is collecting log at one place and then you are taking the log from one location or one device. Okay, so maybe Chongming would answer that. Okay, that's about it. Over to you, Chongming. That's about the intro. Yeah, please take it forward.
Thank you very much, Vikas. Thank you very much. Allow me to first share my screen, everybody. Okay, everybody, I'm assuming you're seeing my main screen right now.
Yep.
If you're not, please do let me know. And if I'm not audible at any point of time, please do let me know as well. Very good morning to everybody here. It's a privilege to be right here speaking to every one of you. My name is Chong Ming, can also call me CM by my initials, from RSA NetWitness, and I manage the system engineering team in Asia Pacific and Japan. Thank you again for joining this presentation. Just a little bit of introduction of myself. I've been in the cybersecurity space for more than 10 years. And my focus has always been in SOC. That's one of my passion, still is. And within the SOC, I started off with SIEM. And to date, I'm still very much involved in SIEM, whether if it is architecturing for it, whether it's deploying it, operating it, or advising customer on how to set up their SIEM. And with that, I would like to share on 5 fundamental building blocks for what I call a risk-focused security operations center. So the SOC or the SOC has come a long way with many different iterations of what success looks like. And this will continue to be the case. Let's take a look at 5 key building blocks of a SOC. Now, to begin with, most, if not all of the SOC are coming to grip with understanding what does data collection means. To me, dovetailing into data collection first and foremost means that the organization can confidently say that they are able to collect all of the required logs and not limited to logs, but also network packets, network artifacts, endpoint evidence, external intelligence, net flow data. This data should all be collected regardless of its format, interpreted in the single language that not only your security team understand, but also the entire technology arm of your organization can understand. So that's the very first building block that we'll talk about a little bit more later on. Now, move on to the second building block, which is analytics. Now, analytics is always a very tricky conversation. And I call this the ability to deploy analytics in a very risk-focused manner. So what do I mean by that? I see that organization at times miss the opportunity to understand how does new analytics, new buzzword, new capability help organization first and foremost to manage risk. Risk is something that's very relevant to their organization. And my risk will be very different from your risk, for instance. And the question is, how is analytics being used currently to help you manage risk? Let me use a very simple example. Now, if you are familiar with the technology threat intelligence platform or a TIP, right? It's a great example where I've seen a lot of organizations adopt a TIP technology, but till date, the TIP technology is serving to only collect and aggregate indicator of compromise or threat intelligence. So the TIP is only functioning as an aggregator, but surely the TIP serves a greater purpose than just aggregating information and keeping it in a central repository. The question here to organization is, what is that purpose that the TIP should serve? Right? So in another word, how do we understand if the analytics that we deploy is something that is relevant to my existing environment? Now, on the third point, which is context. Context is one of the easiest subjects very often to articulate, but probably the most difficult to execute for a lot of people. How often have we heard about integrating, for instance, your CMDB database to security, but only to hear very limited success, right? CMDB data are outdated before they are even used by the security team. That's very often what we see. So the challenge for Security Operations Center build is, how do we integrate real-time context or real-time intelligence into security? That is the key challenge. And that's the third building block that we see as fundamental in building a SOC or enhancing your SOC. Now, the fourth building block, which is a subject that everybody will talk about, the ability to build your team SOC skill set. The need to develop in-house expertise, specifically incident response, right, has increased over the years, and it's not expected to decrease. That's the reality. And the reliance on third party, right, to manage the SOC, to operate the SOC has also picked up over the years. The receptiveness of that has also picked up over the years. Now, this is always a lot of times attributed to high attrition rate and the lack of skilled professional in cybersecurity. Trend in building a smaller and agile SOC team focused on threat hunting and incident response. And a lot of time they're outsourcing their SOC operations to external parties. Right? This is not a problem that is relevant only to, say, India. Right? It's relevant to anywhere across APJ, and I would probably say globally as well. And finally, as you build your SOC or as you build your Security Operations Center, one of the final end state would unavoidably be automation, right? Everybody wants to achieve a high level of automation and orchestration. In my opinion, prudence and calculated decision making are imperative in deciding when our organization ready for automation. I'd like to emphasize that before considering automation, the question we perhaps will be asking ourselves is, are our security operations documented in a manual way? And have we achieved stakeholder buy-in in these documentations? So these are the 5 key building blocks, and I believe that they are important pillars for building a security operations or enhancing your security operations, or whichever stage of your build of your security operations are you in. And I would like to deep dive into each of these blocks in the next 30 to 35 minutes. Now, let's deep dive into the very first building block, which is the ability to achieve visibility across all attack surface. Now, the most important area, in my opinion, is that we perhaps need to start recognizing the diminishing value of a logs-focused SIEM as organization thirst for more data. Traditional SIEM is built for logs when it first started. It was, and it still is today, right? Scalability into collection beyond logs is not given. And increasingly, we are asking ourselves, if we are collecting enough logs, are these sufficient for us? perhaps the question to ask ourselves is, if collecting logs alone is sufficient for us to protect our organization? And I'll share my thoughts around that next. Let's look at the key requirements in achieving visibility into all attack surface. And visibility means beyond logs. Firstly, as your organization move away from an on-premise setup, whether if this is in progress currently or already executed, what we can foresee is that IT infrastructure and services will eventually move partially or fully to a non-on-premise environment. Therefore, to plan for the future means that we also need to ensure that we have the ability to collect logs, whether they are on the cloud, on-premise, or on virtual environment. Regardless of where they are at, we need to have, first and foremost, the ability to collect all of this data. Secondly, the ability to collect beyond just logs, but also the ability to collect network packets, net flow data, and endpoint data is required for you to achieve visibility. SIEM efficiency in detecting threats has been reducing. There are reports about it, about such statistics that we can find out there. And this is partially or mainly due to sophistication of threats. And in this perspective, a logs-focused SIEM is never going to provide sufficient visibility for you and me to detect threats. And therefore, the answer to that is more visibility. And I'll elaborate about that in my next slide. Now, thirdly, all data should be collected via a single platform that does this couple of things. First thing is, I'm collecting all of these raw data in whatever format they are into one single solution and converting them into what we call metadata. Now, after it has been converted into metadata, the data are then enriched with a first level of contextual information that's available natively. For example, when we collect a set of logs that belongs to an IP address range that belongs to your CEO office, we should be able to immediately enrich the logs and tell you that this piece of logs or this set of logs belongs to the CEO office. Lastly, indexing happens to ensure fast searches and efficiency in storing large amount of data, giving your SOC the ability to look at any data in real time. Now, what is important here is this. What is important is the challenge here is not with collecting different logs, different data, network packets, and endpoint or net flow. We are able to collect this data through separate solutions. There are solutions out there that allows us to collect this data. However, when we use different solutions, this means that your SOC or your security operations will be looking at different platforms and different solutions and was still representing data in their own format without the ability to give you an end-to-end perspective of what's happening in your network. Right. So worse still, your SOC team will need to be trained in different platforms to understand how to operate them. What I am essentially advocating here is to plan your data collection extensively, right? And that means to collect beyond just logs as we look to the future. And secondly, for all of these data to be collected and consolidated in a single platform, represented by a single unified platform. And this is what we mean by full visibility into all attack surface. Now, a question you may be asking at this point of time is, why do we need this level of visibility? Why do we have to collect beyond logs? You know, why do we need network packets, net flow, and all of this, and endpoint data? I'd like to use the Lockheed Martin Cyber Kill Chain framework as to illustrate the need for visibility. What you see on the left are the different steps of intrusion that is detailed by Lockheed Martin in the cyber attack kill chain. And let's look at what a type of visibility we need in order for us to see all of these activities or all of these techniques being executed by the attacker. Now, let's start with reconnaissance. So attacker typically assess the situation from outside in. They will use techniques such as port scanning, which your logs will be able to pick up. You go to your firewall logs, we are able to pick up reconnaissance attempt. So there's a checkbox for logs, right? So great, logs is able to do that. Now, based on what the attacker discovered in the reconnaissance stage, which is the first stage, they're able to get into your system, often leveraging on malware and security vulnerability. Now, this is where your logs may not be able to pick up malware being sent from outside to your environment, especially if the malware evades all of these traditional control. How do we then see what's being sent across? This is where network packets allow us to collect all of this data that's being sent outside in. The third stage, which is exploiting vulnerability, the malware was sent into your environment, ends up into a system That's where the exploitation of the system happen when malicious code is being run into your system, right? And this is where your endpoint data are crucial in detecting anomalies that's happening within your machine. And of course, network data to see the exploitation if it's over the wire that's happening. After the exploitation happened, we have a machine that's being exploited. This is where privilege escalation happens. The attacker will always try to get himself admin or root privilege. And this is where logs, again, will play a good part in it. So again, this is where logs is good at in terms of detecting privilege escalation. After they get administrative right, one of the things they do is to move laterally, because the first machine that in fact is usually the launch pad for him to go to the one that he wants to go to, or go to the machine that he wants to go to. And moving laterally require us to have net flow visibility. So logs alone will not be sufficient in this case. So we need net flow to see how our attackers moving laterally. And to cover their trails, they use anti-forensic obfuscation technique to do so. And this is where logs will be able to tell you whenever logs are being deleted from a machine. That's where Windows event logs, for instance, will be able to tell you that. Subsequently, denial of service can happen or will happen in order to stop the attack from being monitored, right? So over here, we see logs being used as well to detect denial of service. But finally, the last stage, which is essentially the most important stage, and that's what your CIO or your board of directors will be asking. When an attack happened, how did the attack happen? What did the attacker get away with? What was the impact of the attack? What was stolen and what was in the stolen file? This is the fundamental question that everybody is asking. And this is the question that we all struggle to answer. Now, with packets visibility, we are able to reconstruct each and every file that's coming in and out of your environment. In another way, if something is being exfiltrated out, we're going to be able to see it. And this is what we call evolved SIEM, the ability to achieve visibility across all of the attack surface. And this is the example that I wanted to show to kind of give you an illustration of why do we need beyond logs, and why is it that logs alone is not sufficient. Because if you look at this queue chain, you'll see that logs will have its blind spot to many of these techniques that's over here. Okay, now if I move on to the next building block, which is analytics, let's talk about this, and let's talk about how do we determine the type of analytics that is required in your organization. So I'm going to take this in a very different way of interpreting this, right? So what does a risk-focused analytics mean? I talk about mapping risk to the analytics that you choose, right? On the left in this chart, we see risk existing in different parts of your organization. So risk exists in many different ways, not just in cyber, right? You have a new project, you have a new initiative, there are risks that inherits from there. So typically in organization, a BIA or business impact analysis is performed on initiative or on new projects that comes along. Risks are then surfaced from BIA, which makes its way to the risk register, which is right in the middle. This is where risk assessment, very often governed by a framework, and threat assessment, very often pulled from vulnerability scanners and patching database, are contributing to the risk register. So all of these are information that is sent to the risk register for you to understand the risk that organization is facing. Now, once we know what are the risks in the register, we use control procedure to govern, which is governed by IT policies, and apply this control procedure to risk. Very often or not, right at the bottom, the prescriptions or the controls are related to Security Operations Center. For example, when I have a risk, the SOC is used to mitigate the risk through continuous monitoring, procuring capability to detect, respond to a particular risk, for instance. So this diagram shows us that having risk-focused analytics means that we are building capability, right, that maps itself back to the risk that your organization are facing. And that, to me, is one of the most important things. In another word, we choose capability because this capability manages the risk that is relevant to my organization, and not for risk generally on the whole. So this makes your mitigating control and your analytics a lot more focused. Okay. So essentially, this is what we see, which is the analytics layer, right? One of the important thing is also how do this analytics, or this basically the chosen analytics, integrate with your SIEM, right? So this is where I see that the analytics that you choose, right, must be able to pull data from the evolved SIEM that you have in place. In another word, the analytics must be able to use the huge amount of data that you collected on your SIEM and work on those data so that they are able to better and more effectively manage your analytics platform. So that's why I call flexibility and the ability to leverage on the large amount of data collected and perform real-time analytics on this. So this is what we mean by a risk-focused analytics platform. And the third block I want to talk about is context. And what does context means? If I use this diagram as an example, right, this is a phishing attack. And we see here that there are various stages of attacks happening. And in these stages, it's imperative for us to do 5 things. The first is the ability to detect the attack. The second is the ability to trace each part of the attack with evidence. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the ability to trace each of them with evidence. The third part is to pull out indicators, which you see over here in the screen, from the evidence that we collect. The fourth point is to contextualize the indicator. Finally, prioritize the incident and respond with evidence. The challenge in this diagram, right, is essentially we are able to pull out this indicator. We're able to see that in the weaponized attachment, there's a hash value because we collect all the network packets. I can see the email itself. I can pull out the hash value of a malicious attachment, for instance. But the problem here is we don't have the context into the threat level of these indicators. How should we respond to this file hash that I just pull out if I don't have context into it? Today, the SOC is taking way too much valuable time, right, to manually find context into this indicator. The objective here is to achieve a state of automation for all the capture indicator to be contextualized at real time. That is the end state that contextualization essentially means, the ability to contextualize indicator at real time. Now, this is an example of what contextualizing indicator looks like. When your SOC reports an IP address that is potentially malicious, as you see on the left, one of the things that threat intelligence or external intelligence is able to give you is all of the different indicator that is found associated to this IP address. So this is great because your SOC may tell you that I'm able to find 250 IP address that is related to this IP address and they are malicious. Now, but one of the questions that you're asking yourself here today is, how many of these 250 indicator is relevant to me? I'm an FSI in India. How many of these IP addresses out of the 250 of them are actually targeting FSI in India? So threat intelligence and contextualization means that with this huge amount of data, we must automatically be able to tell you that out of 250 IP addresses, X number of them are targeting India FSI, are related to a particular threat actor group, APT41, tells you what is the TTP instance that is being used by this threat actor and the product that is targeting, which is Apache web server. So this is what we need threat intelligence to do for us, to tell me what is relevant to me and me alone. And from here, we then branch out into the IP address, the file hash, the vulnerability, threat actor, and so on, that's related to APT41 targeting FSI sector. And from there, we are able to do our impact assessment that is very specific to your organization. So this is what threat intelligence is. Threat intelligence is never about the huge number of data, or contextual information is never about the huge amount of data that's sent to you. But contextualized information is about what are the intelligence that's relevant to you and being sent to you. Right. So let me go to the fourth block. The fourth block is essentially manpower requirement for the SOC. Now, we need to also understand that today, the manpower crunch for cybersecurity professional has never diminished, right? We are trying, we are building, but we are still not at the desired end state. And that being the case, right, the challenge we face today is how do we enable and build our SOC personnel to the desired level of SOC proficiency? Increasingly, as we move to the cloud, how do we ensure the organization and also the IT team members are ready to embrace and run operations in a cloud environment? Now, SIEM or SIEM is one of the solutions that requires a very high level of maintenance. If you run an SIEM, you probably know that the level of maintenance for SIEM is pretty high. And therefore, organizations today are looking at moving their SIEM to a hosted cloud environment. What this means for you or for the customer organization is that the SIEM is not only hosted on the cloud, but its operations its day-to-day operations is also managed by providers, which in turn free up your staff from being tied down by operating and maintaining the SIEM, and in turn allow them to focus on threat detection and protecting their organization. So we are seeing a huge uptake in organization moving their SOC operations and engineering workload to the cloud and outsourcing them. Right. So the last building block is automation. And this is actually one of the key points, because one of the observations I have is having the best of breed development for automation solution, but without the ability to put different SOC processes together, right, does not always end up being a good product. In the same way, the SOC or the automation platform is only as good as a tightly defined SOP that is in your environment, right, that is being spent across different departments, not only your security department, to make automation successful. So there are three key points. These key points, right, over here, right, when you decide to embark on the orchestration and automation journey, these are the key points that you want to achieve. And these are all well and good key points. But we in RSA observe that there are three attributions to why today automation and orchestration and automation deployments are not successful. The first attribution is organization today lack manual workflows. Without manual workflow, we don't have the ability to then translate them into something that's automated. And without the ability to translate it into automated, your SOC platform is not going to yield the result that you want. Second is the lack of authority to automate beyond security control. So I spoke a lot about getting buy-ins beyond security. Today, if certain IT management solution is governed not by the security team, but by the IT team, and part of your workflow involves automating processes in those IT devices or IT solutions. Have we gotten the buy-in from the IT department to be able to do that automation? So that's one of the things that we see, right, that is hampering a successful deployment in this space. And lastly, people and skill sets. So we need to have people who's trained to create automation, to create playbooks within the SOC platform. So these are the three key things that we see, right, as key criteria for organization as they embark on automation and orchestration. So this is how the entire basically desired end state looks like. With the 5 key building blocks in place, right, we achieve these few things. We achieve visibility on the left, full visibility regardless of where the data are, analytics that is risk focused, that is relevant and pertinent to your environment. And we also achieve a level of orchestration and automation that is useful for your environment as well. So I hope these 5 key steps kind of provide the audience with a perspective of the iterative process to start or to transform your SOC. In the next session, I'd like to talk about, in the next 5 to 10 minutes, right, I'd like to talk about how RSA NetWitness is able to help us realize these key building blocks. Right? How does NetWitness help support visibility across all of the attack surface that you see? RSA NetWitness evolved SIEM started the journey of going beyond logs in early 2010. So in early 2010, we have made a concerted decision that the SIEM should not be logs focused only, because that's not going to give us the level of visibility we need. So that was something that we started almost a decade ago, more than a decade ago. The goal is always, or rather about a decade ago, sorry. The goal is always to be able to collect logs, network packets, endpoint data, net flow via one single platform, via the one single NetWitness platform, have all of the collected data transformed into one single unified language. This means that your SOC analysts will just need to familiarize themselves with one platform to get the fullest visibility required. Along with that, NetWitness today is also ready for data collection, regardless of whether they are on-premise, virtualized, or on cloud, to ensure that when you move to the cloud, or whether if you're already in the cloud, the solution or the NetWitness solution is ready for your cloud operations. So that's how we help our customer achieve full visibility via a single platform. How do we then support your analytics needs? So RSA NetWitness has grew our analytics capability in these 4 key areas: behavior analysis, out-of-the-box threat intelligence, correlation between multiple sources, machine learning, and data science. So, this is a program I call it a program that started from the onset. And we built new analytics capabilities such as threat intelligence, such as machine learning into the analytics platform. And today, this is one single analytics platform, right, that is able to take all of your collected data. If you recall earlier on, I talked about analytics, meaning the ability to take all of this large amount of data and performing analytics on it. This is what NetWitness has achieved today. Let me dive a little bit deeper into the different analytics space. Logs focused SIEM, as I have kind of mentioned earlier, is a slowly diminishing capability. But that said, it is still an important piece of analytics capability. We're not saying that we don't have to collect logs. We should still collect logs because there are certain things that logs is still useful in detecting, as I showed in the Lockheed Martin attack queue chain. And this is where RSA NetWitness, right, allow organizations to detect threats through logs collection. Not only detect threats, but also achieve compliance requirement, whether if you're a bank, you're a government entity, or you're any other, or you're other entities as well. So this, we basically do this by collecting, correlating, aggregating logs to reduce the need for your analysts to also have to analyze large amount of logs. The key point here is we are able to quickly detect who was targeted, who or what was targeted, as you see right on top. The next analytics capability is NetWitness Network. This is our packet collection solution. So we don't only collect network packets to achieve visibility, we also analyze network packets. And we provide deep visibility and incident response capability to your SOC by capturing and enriching packets data. So with that capturing of this data, we're able to do what we call reconstruction, which means you are able to know exactly what happened in an attack. Using the phishing email as an example, if the email evaded all your security control, the question you have first and foremost is, are you able to look at the email contents? Are there any malicious attachment? How do we download the attachment for analysis? Who else have received this email? Very fundamental questions. Logs, unfortunately, are not able to give you this answer. And what network packets is able to do for you is to show you the exact email, show you what are the files that was being sent over into your environment, allow you to download the file, allow you to investigate these files in a deeper manner. So that's what we meant by the ability to know how it happened. I see on the first point over here, what assets and which users are impacted. So that's our NetWitness packets or network capability. The third point that I want to talk about is endpoint. Right? So I also talk about collecting endpoint information. Endpoint analysis is very, very crucial for the Security Operations Center. Attackers' landing zone is by and large, most of the time, the endpoint. And NetWitness endpoint provide you the ability to continuously monitor the endpoint for abnormal behavior that are not detected by signature-based detection solution. So we work hand in hand with your signature-based solution and provide that level of visibility that they don't provide essentially. The next level of analytics is what we call NetWitness Detect AI, which is a machine learning capability. And that's also a crucial part in today's analytics platform. The idea is simple. The idea is perform baselining on activities that is deemed as normal and find deviation from these activities when it is abnormal. So these are actually some of the most difficult activity to detect. For example, how do we know if a domain controller administrator is abusing his rights when he has the right to go into the domain controller, when he has the right to make changes? So NetWitness Detect AI is able to do so by understanding what is considered as normal activities and what is abnormal activities for this domain controller administrator and give you that pre-warning into basically something that's abnormal that's happening. So this is how we deal with the analytics piece of providing our customer analytics capability. So I pretty much covered the first block, visibility, second block, analytics. Next, I want to jump into block 3 and 5, which is context and automation. And I'll leave block 4 for the last part. Right? So in this case, context, orchestration, and automation. NetWitness within itself has a solution called NetWitness Orchestrator, which is actually two capabilities in one solution. So the NetWitness Orchestrator is first and foremost a threat intelligence platform whereby you get the latest context into indicator. So if you recall earlier on, I talked about how do we know if IP address is malicious? and why is it malicious, and if it's relevant to your organization, this is what the NetWitness Orchestrator is able to do for you, allowing you to map it to your evolved SIEM and enriching the data in your SIEM at real time without any human intervention. So at the same time, NetWitness Orchestrator is also a SOC platform that provides organizations the ability to create playbook, to automate your SOC processes, to achieve higher level of efficiency and accuracy. So this essentially is the entire NetWitness platform that you see over here. So what I want to advocate here is it is actually really important that we see this entire platform as one single solution. And this is what RSA NetWitness has achieved. The ability to put logs, network, endpoint data, NetFlow data, detect AI in a single platform called NetWitness platform, and then augmenting it with NetWitness Orchestrator. So what essentially we are trying to do, right, and the effort that we have put in, right, is to make sure that you get the fullest visibility, first and foremost. But full visibility when segmented and when in silo is never going to help you. So we put them all in a single platform, speaking in the same language, so that you're able to detect threats the fastest you possibly can and respond to them the fastest you possibly can as well. And the final part that I wanted to talk about is the fourth pillar, which is on technical skill sets. So one of the things that our RSA NetWitness have done, right, is we have introduced what we call the NetWitness Cloud SIEM. And this essentially is NetWitness' effort in hosting our SIEM solution on the cloud, providing our customer the ability to have a hands-free experience in terms of basically managing the day-to-day operation of the SIEM. So all the customer needs to do, or all the customer have to do, is essentially to look at the threats that is detected in the SIEM, react to the threat, respond to the threat. It doesn't require the customer to have to manage the hardware, the software, the upgrading, the day-to-day operation, because all of this heavy lifting is all outsourced to RSA NetWitness. And we will provide the level of availability for our customers so that they can operate with a smaller team that is more focused on threat detection and the ability to basically respond to threat as quickly as they possibly can be. So this is one of the solution that RSA has offered, right, in order to help our customer deal with manpower crunch. That essentially brings me to the end of my presentation. So I hope that I kind of, on a very high level, gave the audience, some insights into what are some of the key building blocks that I see as fundamental for building a SOC or for transforming your SOC, and also how NetWitness is able to help you. So I think the next part is the Q&A session, and I shall stop sharing at this point of time.
Yeah, great session, Chongming. So let's go with Q&A. Guys, please raise your hand if you want to ask live question. And I think there are a lot of questions on the Q&A. Those were answered live, I believe, by Rohit. So thanks, Rohit, for that. Okay, I see a couple of hand raised. Anand, sir, you had already raised your hand in the beginning. I'm not sure if you want to ask question or not. I'm going to allow you to talk. So Mr. Anand Ruhela, go ahead and ask your question. I guess not. So Sridhar Sahu, go ahead. You are next. And you have to be quick, guys. Ashok sir, you are next. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
My question earlier was, which I typed in chat box, was that is RSA having UEBA module? So it was answered by Rohit. See, why I'm looking at UEBA, my question to Charming is basically to mitigate the insider threat, which is very, very easy to plant. We have tried the various solutions, but the false positives are too many. So how are you ensuring that you are doing user behavior entity analysis with AI and machine learning, as you mentioned in your presentation, as well as how you are allotting the scores so that we can pinpoint without as less as possible false positive. Hope my question is clear to you.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for your question. Now, to answer your question, right, first and foremost, let me explain how do we do our UEBA. We use what we call unsupervised learning. In another word, no human intervention is required for you to create any data model. So that's itself is a self-learning technique. Now, within the self-learning technique, right, one of the method that we adopt is we do peer comparison. In another word, within peer, we're able to kind of see what is normal and what is not normal. So there's a whole algorithm behind that to kind of eliminate false positive, first point. Second point is we train basically user behavior over what we call buckets. So within the bucket of say 1 month, if I see that this particular user is behaving as such, in the next month, the behavior of this first month is going to be taken into consideration into understanding if this is a false positive or this is not a false positive. So what I'm essentially trying to say is the more buckets we have, the more accurate this entire machine learning capability is going to be. The third point, which is a little bit more on the human intervention, which is the ability for you to go in eventually, right, when it's down to a lower level of false positive to manually identify what is false positive and what is not false positive. So
you mean to say initially there will be we will go on reducing. Initially there will be more number of false positive and we go on reducing exponentially, right?
I don't think that there will be a high number of positive because initially you will already be adopting a learning period. In another word, I'll be learning your behavior for the last 30 days. And I'm going to tell you this is normal, this is not normal. Now, what we are not able to, for example, at this point of time do, right, or UBA solution is, if somebody does an operation at 3 a.m. India time, right, but it is approved, right? No, UBA will not be able to understand that because that's a human manual process. So that's where you manually go in and say that this is actually a normal behavior. So I hope that kind of explains that a little bit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. Appreciate it.
Mr. Pushpendra, you are next. Please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, good morning, team. So my question here is, do RSA NetWitness offer XDR capability? And how is it different from Evolved SIEM?
That's a great question. So yes, we do offer XDR capability. It is essentially a capability that is going to be offered in our Q3, which is towards the end of the year. So I'm trying to understand it in calendar year perspective. So it is going to be released in the end of the year. And the key difference between XDR and Evolved SIEM is this, right? XDR basically is a extent. So Evolved SIEM is still very much focusing on basically compliance. XDR, on the other hand, are very much focused on the ability to automatically quickly detect and respond to threat. So compliance is essentially most of the time out of the picture in terms of XDR. XDR still follow the fundamental idea of collecting, having visibility into data wherever they are, virtualized, cloud, on-premise, creating analytics, and then the last layer is responding and automating to these threats. So this is something that RSA NetWitness is in the works of doing. Now, if you look at my my earlier presentation, essentially we had different buckets of XDR component today that's already in Evolved SIEM. It is about putting them together and then offering it as an XDR solution. Hope that answers your question as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just an add-on to this question itself. So XDR typically is from the endpoint security perspective, right? Does it mean NetWitness moving to the endpoint security market? That's what it is.
We always have a endpoint solution. We have what we call NetWitness endpoint, which is the EDR solution. And you are absolutely right. XDR is a lot of time focused on the endpoint side of things. But for us, right, it goes beyond the endpoint because we have the data, we have the network packets data, we have the logs data. So the question for us is how do we pull all of this data together and then making sense of it? It could at the end of the day be an endpoint solution. I personally am not sure, but what I'm sure and aware of is we have that kind of visibility that we need.
Right. I'm looking at my calendar for the webinars that we do. So for everyone under the sun for XDR, we have done the events and webinars. NetWitness name is not there. So maybe in Q3, when you come up with this, we might plan something around this, some event. Great, thanks Chongming. Next is Mini on the queue. So Mini ji, please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So my question is, does RSA have an auto containment feature to stop the lateral movement immediately and isolate the infected systems, or it is dependent on the complete response flow and the incident response cycle?
Okay, so there's two parts of the answers to that. The first is we do that detection, right? Which is basically on the logs, on the network packets, on the endpoint side. Now, the ability to block, right, can come in the form of automation. So we are able to then automate processes that you currently have, that means working with your current technology to initiate a action to block a particular attack or block or isolate a particular machine, leveraging on your existing solutions. And why that's important, right? Because in today's context, blocking a machine, isolating a machine, while it's important, right, has also got very serious repercussion, right? We don't want to be blocking the wrong person machine if they are operating on a very time-sensitive type of operation. So that's where the orchestration ability to pull more information in, right, before deciding whether we should block it automatically, having the confidence, having the accuracy is really important in our opinion. So in my opinion, that falls into the orchestration and automation layer.
Great, sounds good. Next question is from Mr. Dwarkanath. Please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, am I audible? Thanks, Vikas.
Yeah, you're audible, sir. Go ahead, please.
All right, great. Yeah, so my question again is extending from what Ms. Mini had asked. So from a dynamic isolation perspective, so is there a way NetWitness can integrate with something like a next generation firewall or something where it can trigger a dynamic isolation and quarantine an endpoint or something like that?
The answer to that is yes. So that's where the NetWitness orchestrator comes in, whereby we can create playbooks to do exactly what you're saying, to isolate machines, to stop to effect a firewall port block, for instance, for a particular IP address. So those are all within the solution and can be triggered automatically.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I don't see any other hand raised. So guys, if you have any other question, please go ahead, raise your hand. Going once, going twice. I think there are no other questions. So thanks, Chongming. A great session. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Again, question of millennium. Do you see my screen? Great. Guys, so if you want to download the participation certificate for today's session, the certificate looks something like this. It is very important to understand how to download the certificate, because next session on Saturday, we have a competition around this. So take a closer look. This certificate is for today's session, okay? What you got to do is go to Elite CISO's website, which is www.elitecisos.com. Come under events, click on upcoming events. And over here, you will see today's session detail. Click on CP certificate and put your email address, put your full name, and the secret to download the certificate. Guys, I cannot see it clearer than this. It is small case. It is small case because every time I see at least 20 people out of 100 make this mistake, okay? The password is SOC, SOC, okay? Without any space, first letter is not capital. It is not full capital. It is small case SOC. If you enter it, you will get the certificate over your email. Okay. I have put it on the chat. I am putting it again because teams spend too much time answering to people who give those who put wrong secret. So SOC is the password. That's what you got to do to download your participation certificate. Okay, guys. Now, since you are here, right, you can also register for Saturday's webinar that we are doing at 5 o'clock India time, and our very own Rishi Rajpal will join, and we will hear practically from his perspective what are the best practices for stopping or rather preventing ransomware, right? Because ransomware, we have seen a lot of challenges are there due to it. A lot of organizations are falling for ransomware. So we will hear from Palo Alto expert Vicky Ray, who will join us again from Singapore, like Chongming has joined today. Not sure if you guys know each other or not, but yeah. So Vicky will join from Singapore. Rishi, our very own member from Delhi chapter, he will share insights around how do you defend from endpoints. What is great about this session, apart from the knowledge, we will have 5 Apple AirPods as giveaway. Okay, 5 Apple AirPods will be given away. We will have Wheel of Fortune, the typical Wheel of Fortune that we do. So one Apple AirPod is for Wheel of Fortune. Rest 4 will be related to a LinkedIn contest that we will do live during the session. And for that LinkedIn competition, you have to have the participation certificate of that session. Okay, so similar certificate will be provided in that session. So that's why I'm saying it is important for you guys to understand how to download the certificate. So it's simple, go to Elite CISO's website, click on CP certificate, fill the form, enter the password, and you will get the certificate. So we already have about 300 registration for this. So great, guys, thanks a lot. What you might not know is if you scroll ahead, we have another session around SOC management and SIM management. This session is a typical Thursday session that we do, like today, 11 o'clock, we had this session. Next week on Thursday, 11 o'clock, we have this session with DNIF, very much local Indian company. And we will see what their offerings are around SOC and SIM management. First 100 people to register for this session will be part of a raffle where we will give away Amazon Alexa. Okay, guys, registrations are live. You can simply click on register now and register for it. It is 11:58, 2 minutes to go. Let me mute Mr. Anand Ruhela. Okay, so yeah, guys, go ahead and register for both of these if you have not registered. What at the end people are waiting for before I go to the Wheel of Fortune, and thanks Ashok sir for reminding me, guys, we have a YouTube channel, okay, and we need more subscribers. Okay, I don't know how to say click the ring bell and do the subscribe, but yes, what we do is all these sessions, they go live, they go the recorded session, they go on YouTube. And if you have not been able to attend previous sessions, you can go ahead and play the sessions over there as well. Now to go to YouTube live, we need 1,000 subscribers, right? Right now we are at 597. So I would appreciate if you can like Elite CISO's YouTube channel. I'm putting the link on the chat window, and it is very much appreciated that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, or otherwise you can simply say Elite CISOs on YouTube and you will get to that. So thanks a lot for your support on that. Last but not the least, what people are waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune that we do every week during our webinars. The giveaway today is Amazon Alexa. I have first 100 people who registered in this Wheel of Fortune over here. I will spin it once. If your name comes, go to the chat and say, yes, you are there. And then we will ship your Amazon Alexa to you. Okay. The Alexa on my desk keeps blinking when I say Amazon Alexa. Okay, guys, I am running it now. So 204 participants I see right now. Let's see who the lucky one is. Mr. Dhyanesh Chaudhary from Axis Bank. Mr. Dhyanesh, if you are there in the session, please go to chat and type yes. Mr. Dhyanesh is there. Very nice. Very nice. Great, Mr. Dhyanesh. Congratulations. I'm sure you have my number. Please ping me on WhatsApp, or otherwise I will reach out to you and we will give away Amazon Alexa. Congratulations. Great. That's about it, I think. Thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks NetWitness team. Thanks Chongming. Great session. Really appreciate you guys taking out time and joining. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you.